Stress is a complex topic. You probably already know that. There are many components to stress and many subtopics within the bigger topic of stress that can be discussed. One of the things that I want to bring to your attention today is the importance of leading by example when it comes to stress. I talked to you about how to deal with stress, how to reduce stress, eliminate stress in some cases, and how to view and perceive stress so that you may deal with stress and in its effects in the best way possible. But I want you to also think about others when it comes to stress. Leading by example is one of those things that we need to consider when we look at stress. How you react to stress, how you deal with stress, how you manage stress, how much stress you have in your life, how much stress you allow into your life, are all components of the general topic of stress in your life. But part of that is your example that you're setting in all of those different subcomponents. So how you react to stress is an example for someone else or multiple people that shows them how one could react to stress. How much stress you allow in your life, again, you're leading by example, showing someone how much stress they can or should allow into their lives. Now, the most obvious people when we talk about leading by example could be your children, or if you are a manager or a leader at work, it could be for your team at work. But it applies just as much to anybody that's part of your life, to anybody that you come in contact with. If you find yourself in a stressful situation in a public place and you don't handle it very well, let's say you lose your cool and you don't handle the situation very well, you are essentially an example to someone out there who is witnessing how you are behaving, how you are reacting. Now, you may say to yourself, so what? Everybody's responsible for your own behavior. That's not my problem. Well, on some level, technically, I guess you could look at it that way, but we live in a world, in a society altogether. So even if we're talking about strangers and how we may or may not influence them, it's the responsible thing to take into consideration how we conduct ourselves. So if you are demonstrating to others poor ways of handling stress or unhealthy ways of handling stress or ineffective ways of handling stress, you may be influencing someone out there to follow in your footsteps simply because they're mimicking what they see in others, especially if you have impressionable people. That includes adults or teenagers or children. People copy other people. Sometimes you see a lot of stupid things just because people saw it on social media. You know what I'm talking about. So we have to take a responsibility or have a sense of responsibility in what messages we are sending to others. That's why leading by example when it comes to stress is an important part of the conversation. So whether it's your kids, whether it's your spouse or life partner or other family members or your team at work, your coworkers, your colleagues, we lead by example so that we may create a world that we want to live in, or at least ideally, right? If you lead by example in such a way that you are showing others the world you want to live in, then you're contributing to that world. But if you're leading by example, showing behaviors, showing things that essentially reflect a world you don't want to live in, you are still building a world but it's one that you don't want to live in. So leading by example is so important when it comes to the consideration of stress in our lives. How you deal with stress, how you react to stress, how you behave, how you conduct yourself, whether or not you're taking care of yourself. It's really no different than, let's say, we talk about a diet. You can't have horrible dietary habits and then expect your children to have healthy eating habits. They're going to do what they see you do, not what you say. You have to walk the walk. Similarly, we can apply the same ideas at work. If you're a leader, even if you're not officially in a leadership position, but you're part of a team, you work with other people, if you are exhibiting certain behaviors, you can't expect them to behave differently. For example, if your behaviors, specifically or especially if your examples are less than desirable, you can't turn around and expect those around you to have superior behaviors as compared to you simply because you want that to be your experience, but you don't care what their experience is in terms of what you give out. So leading by example is so important. This is so important in everything we do in life, the way we conduct ourselves, the way we interact with the world. If you want a better world, start with yourself. If you want a better world in terms of stress, and that's a good goal for all of us to have because there's a lot of stress out there. If you want a better world in terms of stress, lead by example of how to minimize, eliminate, and manage stress effectively. What kind of things will be helpful? Eliminate the things that are not helpful, whether it's your reactions or behaviors or your dietary choices or your exercise habits, whatever the case is. Make sure that you are sending the kind of message that you yourself would appreciate receiving, because that is how we contribute to the world that we create around us. What we send out comes back to us in that sense. You've probably heard that saying in some form or another, that what you put out there is what you get back. Well, this is an example of that, right? How we behave, how we conduct ourselves, what we teach others, that all comes back to us because this is what people pick up. This is what they mimic. This is what they learn. This is what they copy. So when it comes to stress, make sure that while you are aware and considerate of how it's affecting you, make sure that you are also thinking of those around you. And again, that includes those closest to you as well as people who are complete strangers to you. Because unless you live in total isolation, where you never see anybody, not even electronically, then you are affecting other people. We are all affecting other people. So that's why it's so important to make sure that we're on point.